everyone. Welcome back to Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. Did you miss us? I missed us. I hope Xan missed us.
I missed us.
Excellent. So here, I know we've been away for a while, and, we had a lot of things going on. We had the election, and then Xan decided to eat poison salad, among other things, and unfortunately, things didn't work out so much. Launching a second podcast.
Xan had salmonella poisoning.
Yeah.
So, that was a...
Bad salad.
That was a problem. Yeah, that was a real problem. Yeah. And, we had planned to do podcasts, and I just had to say, Charles, this is not going to be pretty if we do this. We don't want this recorded right now. No. So, yeah, if you've got lettuce in your fridge, I would just beware.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying.
See, this is why you need to stick to unhealthy things like, I don't know, Twinkies and Ruffles potato chips and, stuff that won't kill you. Right away, anyway.
Well, stuff that won't make you vomit for a few days in a row.
Yeah.
I was...
At the worst, it might give you a little diarrhea for a while.
Well, yeah. But I was in Wednesday, the Wednesday before we usually record podcast, I was in a team meeting at work. And, of course, we're all remotely now, so it was just audio. So we were all just... At the beginning of our team meetings, we do a little team builder icebreaker thing. We just sort of talk about something. And my boss is talking about how the salad she had made for lunch wasn't doing it for her. I'm like, yeah, I feel ya. And then everybody started talking about soup recipes, the kind of super chilly, what they like in cold weather food.
Yeah. And
a woman I worked with, she started giving us her recipe for salmon chowder.
Okay.
And I just wrote to my boss, I'm like, I have to go. I just sent her a quick I am like, I'm leaving.
And then you're like, bleh.
Yeah. And then so I had my phone in the bathroom.
I'm gonna have to get that sound effect and put it on my phone.
That needs to be on your phone.
Yeah.
So I'm in the bathroom with my phone on mute in case somebody says my name. And then afterwards, my boss is like, "Do you need to?" I'm like, "I need to not be here for the rest of the day." She's like, "Do what you got to do." And then the next day, she's like, "How are you feeling?" I'm like, "Not good. I didn't sleep very well." She's like, "Do you want to take the day off?" I'm like, "So bad." And I said, I have a few things I have to do, but I'm going to leave at like 10:30 or 11. She's like, all right, whatever. So
the first step is to lick your palms. It's a little childish and stupid. So is work.
Some people will tell you that a good phony fever is a deadlock, but if you get a nervous mother, you might wind up in a doctor's office. That's worse than school.
Yeah, see, this is what happens because Xan and I decided to start Drunk Cinema, and we have Ferris Bueller fresh in our heads because we just talked Ferris Bueller in Drunk Cinema not too long ago. So,
Charles, when do you not have Ferris Bueller fresh in your head?
It's a good question. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
For me, I've had Ferris Bueller fresh in my head for 36 years now.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was one of the things we did talk about on that podcast, as I recall. So we know it's been a while. We know it's been about a month since we got an episode out. So
I'm sorry, guys. That's all me. It was all my illness. I apologize. I had heart trouble. I wound up in the ER with heart trouble.
Yeah.
And right now, the ER is not where you want to be because the ER is full of people with COVID. And I wound up leaving the ER after I had an EKG, and then I sat there for 4.5 hours. Because I figured if anything had been on my EKG, someone would have seen me by now.
Yes. If it was important, they would have
why
don't you come on back? Yeah.
So I obviously converted. I talked to my doctor. I said, listen, I'm thinking of leaving because, I'm part of the Ohio State health system. I was able to email her and I said, listen, I'm thinking of leaving. I had an EKG. No one has talked to me about it. I have the appointment with the heart doctor. I have an appointment with the heart doctor on this coming Monday. So I will let you know, Charles, how that goes.
Please do.
I
worry.
I left.
I'm a Jewish mother, apparently.
Well,
Nick would approve, by the way, of that.
I can't just tell you about my day for 30 minutes. I mean, I seem to be completely incapable of not saying, "Hey, here's what happened to me, Charles." Like you actually care. But
of course I care. What are you talking about? You don't think I care? Do you? Seriously?
I know you don't care. Cameron, that hurts. What have we seen today? I don't know, nothing good.
Oh, Cameron, wait a minute. No.
Wait, nothing good. We've seen the whole city. We ate pancreas. Anyway, so I left the ER because it was me, COVID patients, broken limbs, and stroke victims.
There's a good combo.
And I was like, listen, if nobody is coming to get me, I just must have a bad irregular heartbeat, but nothing so bad that is going to be life-threatening. So I had to go.
Yeah.
But I've had some rough heart trouble, and I had salmonella. So
you got that going for you, which is nice.
It's been gross. So it's been all me and my dainty self. So I apologize out there and to all of our listeners in podcast land. It's all me.
Well, you're such a delicate flower.
Yeah.
As Judy Tenuta used to say once upon a time.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. You knew what I was talking about. All right.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody, thanks for your patience. We really appreciate it. We know, like I said, it's been a month. We didn't forget. It's not like we were blowing this off. No. So we know that, we were waiting to talk Elephant Man Criterion Collection Edition and go through all those nifty special features. But life is what it is, right? It happens when you're busy making other plans.
Oh, yes, exactly.
As the saying goes. So in the meantime, and we know it's been a month, so we got a lot of catching up to do as a result. And one of the things that happened while we were away, sadly, we should probably talk about first, is we lost David Lander.
David Lander. Hello.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously known to most people as Squiggy on Laverne and Shirley, Andrew Squiggy Squigman.
Yep.
But known to Twin Peaks fans, of course, as Tim Pinkle, the taxidermist and home care salesman and dance choreographer and occasional pine weasel expert that we all loved on Twin Peaks. And also, for David Lynch fans, he also played Valja Gotchkich on the Air.
Yes.
So he's kind of a veteran of 2 David Lynch series. He apparently died of, a lot of people probably knew that he had multiple sclerosis, which is something go ahead.
He had been doing, the predominant amount of work that he'd been doing in the last 20 years has been voice work, because he's had mobility issues for a long time.
And he has a very distinctive voice. So
yes, he does. He does.
So yeah, and this is something that I was particularly sensitive to because my former co-host on the Phantom Zone podcast, Karen Lindsay, has MS.
Yes.
And had to basically step away from the podcast because her condition had worsened.
Because it's insidious.
And it's a horrible, horrible condition.
Yeah.
So my deepest sympathies to anybody who has it. But apparently David Lander died of complications from MS at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles on December 4th, 2020, at the age of 73.
Yep.
So, which is very sad. But in addition to playing Squiggy on Laverne and Shirley and in his work on Twin Peaks and on the Air, he also reprised Squiggy on the Simpsons episode Helter Shelter, if you recall.
That was a fantastic one. Do you remember that one?
I do remember.
They lived it was like a reality TV show where they lived in a Victorian house.
Yeah, for whatever reason, their house got fumigated or something. They had to leave.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I seem to recall they went to is that the one where they went to the hockey game and they gave Lisa the winning hockey stick, but it had termites in it? So I think that's what
that might have been because it was probably. I think if I recall correctly, and obviously I defer to you on all things Simpsons.
Yeah, I believe that.
But I believe it was a termite infestation that caused that. So it was probably from that hockey stick, like you said.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but he's also notable because he played the character Smartass in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Sure did.
And the character Thumper in A Bug's Life.
Uh-huh.
And he was also on episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation. The Weird Al Show, which is a little obscure thing of greatness. And
Logistic Contestant Factory. I love that show. It's on DVD, by the way.
Oh, is it? I didn't know.
Yeah, I have it. It's great.
I should have realized that you had
Weird
this.
Al Show, Weird Al Show.
I haven't seen that in forever.
Yeah, it's so good.
Because nobody's putting it on Netflix, apparently.
That's why we buy physical media, kids.
Exactly. So, and also he was on the Bob Newhart Show and also voiced roles on Batman the Animated Series and Superman the Animated Series.
And one of my favorite animated series for children, Oswald. I don't know if you've ever seen Oswald, Charles.
No, I haven't.
It's adorable. Oswald is a little blue octopus who wears a bowler hat. And he is on the show. Oswald is voiced by Fred Savage.
Mm-hmm. From the Wonder Years fame, yeah.
From the Wonder Years.
Princess Bride.
I hate that. He's gonna pinch my cheeks. I hate that. So, and he lives in this little town, and he walks around the town, and he has a friend who is played by David Lander,
Mm-hmm.
who kind of reprises Squiggy every time on Oswald, because whenever he greets him, it's "Hello, Oswald." It's so cute.
That's adorable.
So, but yeah, Oswald was an adorable show, and just like I said, Oswald, he's just a cute little guy. Yeah, see, look, he's an octopus with a bowler hat.
That's cute. Yeah.
I mean, come on, it was a series of children's books as well, but
yeah.
It's I want to say David Lander was the penguin. He was a penguin on that show, but yeah. Had a lot of good distinctive voice actors on that show, like Richard Kind.
Yes, who was also in A Bug's Life with David Lander. Yeah.
Yes, he was. Sadly, we can't watch A Bug's Life anymore because
why?
We have to feel guilty when we watch A Bug's Life.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because it stars rapists. That's why.
Yes, I get that, but. Just kind of pretend it's somebody else's voice, maybe.
Just pretend it's a horrible, horrible grasshopper.
Yeah, we don't like to talk about him, especially.
It was also the last thing.
Especially since he ruined the last season of House of Cards. So
I know. Yeah, it is the last thing that Jonathan Harris did before he passed away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Madeline Kahn's in that, and so.
Oh, and Dennis Leary as a ladybug is one of the greatest things.
Yes, that's a very underappreciated Pixar film, as far as I'm concerned.
And the main character is freaking David Foley. I mean,
yeah.
How great is that?
Yeah, I know, right?
So yeah,
but Phyllis Diller, and lots of amazing actors in this one.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
So highly underrated as far as I'm concerned. So getting back to David Lander, obviously very sad news. But Zan and I have kind of, we're going to talk about this at the end of the episode, but we've decided to come up with a little tribute to David Lander. Mm-hmm. So we'll just save that. We're going to table that for now.
A tribute to David Lander.
Yep.
And the endangered pine weasel.
Yep, exactly. So keep that in mind, and we'll get back to that. And kind of bookmark that for the end of the episode. Also, one of the big news that came out while we were gone was, well, hey, no big deal. David Lynch is doing shooting a Netflix series in 2021. So,
how freaking excited am I about this?
A new David Lynch TV series, you guys. Mm-hmm. So apparently, the name of the series, by all accounts at the moment, is Unrecorded Night. There was a working title that was being bandied around called Wisteria, but according to the website Welcome to Twin Peaks, they've got word of Lynch's new Netflix series, Unrecorded Night, which had appeared in a mention in issue 1224 of Production Weekly. And apparently in that magazine, there's listings of all the upcoming film shoots. And apparently there was, the listing that there was originally it was listing a Untitled David Lynch series that was being filmed. And some of it was going to take place at Calvert Studios, which is where Rancho Rosa shot parts of Twin Peaks: The Return. And then further listings, showed up that it was, now listed as Unrecorded Night with the working title Wisteria.
Okay.
So apparently, Wisteria is that working title that, when they're on location and they want to try to fool people just passing by.
So like Blue Harvest?
Yes, exactly like Blue Harvest. Thank you very much. It's an excellent example.
Thank you.
So the series apparently is going to be 13 episodes, which have already been copyrighted because apparently Welcome to Twin Peaks got a hold of Lynch's copyright of this, which is obviously public record. So he's doing at least 13 episodes of this, and it's going to be written by David Lynch, and he's going to direct, and Sabrina S. Sutherland is going to be the producer on this.
Okay. And I'm assuming we have do we know yet, do we have other usual suspects like Johanna Ray doing casting, or do we not know?
Not yet. We
Is Mark Frost involved? Have we heard that yet?
Mark Frost has apparently reportedly denied all involvement on Twitter.
Oh,
so it seems unlikely that without him, this would be about Twin Peaks.
It's definitely not going to be. It's probably going to be something.
Unless it's like something where he's bringing characters over,
or it's going to be something completely different, like Hotel Room.
Yeah. That's possible.
Or even, or even like we were talking with David Lynch on the air.
Yeah.
Maybe it's going to be a comedy. Who knows?
Yeah, and apparently they were bringing up the very valid point that if it was going to be something Twin Peaks related, CBS Showtime would be the obvious partner for anything more Twin Peaks instead of
Right.
Netflix.
Instead of Netflix, and again, as much as I love David Lynch, I wouldn't want a Twin Peaks without a Mark Frost.
Yeah, because obviously they're a great creative pairing.
They're two great tastes that taste great together.
I mean, Frost has that fascination with the UFOs and just comes up with a kind of a way to kind of form a more coherent narrative out of Lynch's more abstract ideas.
Right.
So they kind of complement each other creatively.
I think so for Twin Peaks. I think so for sure. I feel like it is a, Frost Lynch Productions.
Yes.
You really shouldn't have one without the other because it will be watered down.
Yeah.
It won't be Lynchy enough or it won't be Frosty enough.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, it could be something, if you were going to do something Twin Peaks, I have to think it would be something maybe like the Blue Rose Task Force or something that.
Even that, I would want Mark Frost as a part of.
Yeah.
Anything with Twin Peaks involved, I would want Mark Frost there.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's fair.
But I would love to see, David Lynch has done 3 TV series.
Yes.
And not in a long time. We had the Twin Peaks, then we had On the Air, and then we had Hotel Room, and he hasn't really done anything between then and The Return. So anything he wants to do, I'm willing to watch. I mean, I wonder if Hotel Room ever got released on DVD. I haven't seen Hotel Room in ages.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Yeah, it was, they released a few episodes on video, but it was an HBO series, and I didn't have HBO at the time.
Well, then it might be on HBO Max, perhaps.
I'll look, but I haven't seen hide nor hair of it in a long time.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can probably find bootlegs of it on YouTube with Korean subtitles. Like you can find anything.
Because that's always a great experience watching, right?
That's how I found Davy Jones on My Two Dads when Davy Jones passed away. My Two Dads with Asian subtitles.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Now, interestingly, Unrecorded Night is the translation of the Old World English, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this right because it's spelled Nihtscada, so probably Neatskada.
Okay.
Or Neatskada, which is also nightshade. And the nightshade family of plants includes many poisonous and psychoactive plants like mandrake, belladon, and henbane, apparently. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, wisteria refers to a light medium violet color equivalent to a light lavender and a genus of flowering plants, in the legume family. So there seems to be some kind of, floral connection here, interestingly enough, or some kind of botany, relationship, botanic relationship, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Or wisteria could be a reference to Wisteria Lane, which was...
I was thinking Wisteria Lane, yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people are, the setting of the TV series Desperate Housewives, which, featured a certain Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah, I remember him being there.
So could this be a little sly nod that this is going to be involving MacLachlan, perhaps?
That's a good question. I don't know. But either way, whatever it is, we're going to watch it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to obsess over it. We're probably going to love it.
Probably. Yeah. Here's hoping, anyway. At the very least,
is there anything David Lynch has done that we have not loved?
I don't know. I wasn't really a fan of the rabbits thing, but that's me.
It was interesting, and the rabbits thing was interesting.
I wasn't wild about that, but
I liked looking at it. I loved what did Jack do.
I loved what did Jack do. I was very cool with that, and that was obviously interestingly that was kind of like the beginning of this relationship with Netflix.
Uh-huh.
I think this is something that we were kind of hoping. It's like, oh, he's doing something for Netflix. What else could he do for Netflix?
And I love his weather report.
Yep.
everything he does. I
We-
really, and
We
interestingly,
know he's been sitting around the house all year during the pandemic, like
just painting and smoking.
building stuff, smoking, drinking coffee, and
Yeah.
doing his weather report videos.
Pretty much, yeah. And I was reminded, Charles, watching all of these extras on The Elephant Man, because so much of this is just interviews with David Lynch and David Lynch readings, and just how much I enjoy him as a person.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who it was. It was somebody who worked on Blue Velvet, just described him as the sweetest, most Midwestern person you'll ever meet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a Midwestern person who strives to be the sweetest person you'll ever meet. So
Well, you are. You're the sweetest person I know.
Oh, you don't drive with me that often.
Well, yeah, it's normally because when we hang out together, you make me drive. So, yeah.
Because why would I backtrack to go pick you up?
That's a good point. Yeah.
When there's movies over on your side of town,
That's true.
I'll come pick you up.
Right.
Those are the rules.
Right. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. And even if we were going to meet at the theater, you would probably literally drive past my house.
Right.
To get there. So anyway.
This is true. You're on the way. Yes.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
It's a good point.
I need to come to your house sometime, meet your cat, hang out with your comics.
I know. I would love to have you over, but hey, COVID, so I get it. But,
pandemic.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's just our convenient excuse not to clean the house, I guess.
Well, seriously. Yeah, David Lynch is just a really thoughtful, interesting, encouraging person.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of, and watching the extras of the of anything, of any,
but especially since we're talking about the
or,
Elephant Man Criterion.
Elephant Man, because of how he worked with some really classic people.
Mm-hmm.
Just how he's very complimentary and very, very encouraging. And just when we were watching the extras on the return, about how he would make an announcement when it was somebody's first time on set and their last time on set, and
you do the gather round kind of thing. The gather
round, yeah. He's very appreciative of the collaboration, and I really like that about him.
Well, there's some things I want to talk about that I was, watching these documentaries on the Criterion Elephant Man.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of compliments from Mel Brooks, among others, but Mel's in particular kind of stood out because obviously Mel's got that reputation. He's a creative force on his own, right? And he just effuses over David Lynch. He gives him all this glowering praise.
Mm-hmm. And Mel Brooks is an interesting one because, like most people who are known for outlandish comedy,
mm-hmm.
he's not a particularly outlandish person.
Right.
He's a shrewd businessman and a good guy, but he's definitely not...
He's not always on.
He's not President Scroob.
Yes.
The
Hail
same
Scroob.
thing.
I'm sorry.
Hail Scroob. Or
Hail me.
Someone, or someone like if one of the, I think, the best examples of the juxtaposition between the man behind the creative product
mm-hmm.
is Roger Corman.
Right.
Because Roger Corman looks like somebody's square-ass grandpa. And he's made millions of dollars making softcore porn, racing, or monster movies.
Right.
And he doesn't look like the type of guy that would make those movies, let alone watch those movies.
And really cheesy Fantastic Four films.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. But he's...
Don't think I've forgotten that one.
No. I mean, he's behind some of, like, the greatest cheesy movies out there.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't think to look at him like that. I mean, someone like a William Castle,
mm-hmm.
with the cigar and his brash nature and stuff like that, you're like, okay, I can see how this guy would be the 13 Ghosts guy. Or someone like a John Waters. John Waters
mm-hmm.
sort of embodies his characters, with his persona and his look and things like that. Mel Brooks is more like a Roger Corman that you don't... If you were to meet Mel Brooks, he would just be any other Jewish grandpa cracking jokes.
Right.
And then you would realize, oh, wait, like Young Frankenstein Mel Brooks? So I think Mel Brooks with his.
So you think he would come off as very unassuming, and then
I think,
if
yeah,
you didn't know everything that he did.
right. Like I think if you had never known him for his work and you met him and then you found out it was the same guy, you'd be like, oh, really?
Yeah. If his reputation didn't precede him.
Right. Because to hear him in these documentaries, to hear him talk about this project in particular, David Lynch and all the people involved, he's very serious about this project.
Yes, he is.
I think everyone understood the
difficulty, perhaps?
Not the difficulty. What's the word I want to? What's the word I'm looking for? Everyone had a respect for the subject matter.
Okay.
In this, that that great scene with John Gielgud where he says, "Can't even imagine what he must have been through." Yes, I think I can. No, you can't. I don't think any of us could imagine what he's been through, and I feel like that was in the back of everyone's mind making this picture.
Yeah.
That we are trying to do justice to someone who faced some of the most unjust things that life can throw at you.
Yeah.
And Mel Brooks is no exception. And, you would think that Mel Brooks would be the one that would be making the inappropriate jokes, but he's not at all.
No.
He's like, this is a movie that needs to be done. I want to be a part of it. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to give David Lynch control. He's a very shrewd production businessman.
Yeah. He's able to, he's able to be funny, but that doesn't mean he always has to be funny.
Right.
He's a professional. And,
he is.
And in this case, it wasn't his job to make the movie funny because it's not supposed to be funny.
Right.
His job was just to help organize it, get the right talent. And that's one of the things that he did helping Lynch, as we find out in these extras, was that Mel came in and, met with Lynch after, watching the Eraserhead screening and was won over and is like, okay, when Lynch needed help with the makeup, particularly, he and Jonathan Sanger, the producer, they stepped in and they brought in the makeup specialist, whose name is I'm blanking on at the moment. I should have it.
Christopher Turner?
Christopher Turner, thank you. And they brought him in to kind of take over. But Mel, at that point, to his credit, could have just gone off on Lynch, and he didn't.
No, he did. I mean, because I think there was a reverence for what they needed to do here.
Yeah.
Because they're in one of the documentaries where they're talking to John Hurt when he finally has all the makeup on, and he walks on set, and it was just
quiet.
Stunned, dead silence. And he said, if there had been one echo of a giggle, they would have failed.
Yeah, I thought that
there's no way that would have worked, and it was.
I thought that was an amazing anecdote.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too, and it was grueling what he went through with. He couldn't. He was a lot like Joseph Merrick. He couldn't lie down.
Yeah.
If he had that makeup on, it was too heavy.
He couldn't sleep because of the head being so big. So it was a very similar problem because Merrick, if he had laid his head down, as we saw in the movie,
as we know,
the movie, he would have strangled and died.
Right. He would have broken his neck.
Yeah. So do we want to start breaking this down? Because we're kind of already starting to break it down.
Let's just sort of break down what the DVD has to offer.
Okay, so
because kids, you need to buy this DVD.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you can probably get this movie on the Criterion channel, but to have this DVD, you have all the extra stuff.
Yeah.
You've got this great book that has
the booklet. There's
the booklet which has
36 pages, by the way.
36 pages. It has a great interview with David Lynch. It has some great photos from the picture, and including the opening photo, which is the circus, the sideshow poster.
Right. The terrible Elephant Man.
The terrible Elephant Man. admission is 2p. I think it's very cheap to get in.
Yep.
But then you also have that letter to the Times written by Dr. Cargam.
Right.
Which is very cool to have.
Yeah.
And to read about. And
yeah,
so
it's this actual letter written to the London. It was published in the London Times on December 4th, 1886.
Right. And he's trying to find a place for the Elephant Man, and describing what he went through and how he had someone who he was working with that robbed him and left him destitute, and just it's sort of going through all the trials and tribulations, and just that's an interesting piece of history.
Yeah.
To have at your fingertips on your DVD shelf. So yeah, this is a must buy. Yeah,
it is. And while you mentioned it, apparently that booklet opens with a poem that Merrick was, I guess, he concluded his letters with.
Yes.
Yeah, which is apparently called False Greatness. It's adapted from False Greatness by Isaac Watts, and it's basically talking about his form, and talking about how, like,
'tis true my form is blaming is something odd, but blaming me is blaming God. Could I create myself anew, I would not fail in pleasing you. If I could reach from pole to pole or grasp the ocean with a span, I would be measured by the soul. The mind's the standard of a man.
Yeah.
Basically, a very elegant way of
judge
saying,
me by my soul instead of my physical form.
Exactly. By not the color of my skin, the content of my character.
Yep. Say, wait a minute.
Which is again an elegant way of saying don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
Except unless it's that back flap, because that gives you a lot of information about the author. But it's a very elegant way of saying there's more to a man than his appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so sad that we've got 140 years under our belt and we still haven't figured that shit out. So, but yeah, just because there's just not much on him. There's not, there's the two pieces of there's Dr. Treeves's writings.
Yes.
And then the other writing, and, but he didn't write a lot himself. There was not a lot of
the ones that were kind of the inspiration for the script.
Right. The ones that were the inspiration from the script, but it's also, he's an enigma, Joseph Merrick, because there wasn't a lot that unfortunately, Dr. Treeves, I think, didn't listen as well as he should have if he was going to write this stuff down.
Right.
Because again, he, and they talk about this a little bit in the documentary, that he probably referred to him as John instead of Joseph as a privacy thing. But with him being known as John Merrick and not Joseph Merrick, and not really knowing where he came from, and I think that was the more they talk about it, the more I can understand why that would be an attempt at privacy for him and his family, and whoever the shrew that his father remarried after his mother passed away, who was terrible to him. Right. It keeps people from banging down her door and wanting to beat the crap out of her, because I know I do. So because of that, we don't know a whole lot about him. So anything that we can have to bring us closer to such a pure soul, I think is good for it's good for us as people, frankly. Yeah.
And so do we want to break it down as far as what's on this Blu-ray release, or do we want to just start talking about things that we found interesting? Do you think?
Well, let's break it down as to what there was, and we can talk about what we found interesting about what there was.
Okay. Well, since we talked a little bit about the booklet, is there anything else interesting that you want to discuss about the booklet before we go further?
No, I really wanted to make a point of talking about how Dr. Cargam's letter was in there. I thought that was extremely cool.
Yeah.
That was included, and it's a great David Lynch interview. David Lynch is always interesting to read about, so I highly recommend it.
All right, so what else is on this release? There, in the supplements, you have Room to Dream, which is a 70-minute audio, where David Lynch and co-author Christine McKenna read from their 2018 book, Room to Dream.
Right.
And I didn't listen to this because it was just kind of, I don't think it was directly relating to the Elephant Man, if I recall correctly.
I listened to it. I started to listen to it, but it was, I think it was bad timing because I did doze off.
Okay.
So what I'm probably going to do with this
doesn't really say a lot for the audio, I guess.
No, it's wonderful. It says a lot about me, and my problem with audiobooks is that I find them like bedtime stories.
Okay. They're very relaxing and
they're very relaxing. So when I listen to a book on tape, like Chris listens to audiobooks all the time to keep his mind on what he's doing.
Yeah.
It lets my mind wander and it puts me to sleep a lot of the time. And unfortunately, I think that's because there are certain audiobooks that I have put on to put me to sleep, and now my brain is in that. But for me, audiobooks are like bedtime stories.
So you can listen to it. I was going to say, so you can listen to it in the car? It's
got to be like true crime or a mystery or something that has me hooked.
Okay.
Because if it's like true crime or a mystery.
Anxious.
Yeah, anxious. Yeah. If it's true crime or a mystery, I can't listen to it to relax because it winds me up.
Yeah.
But if it's anything else, like I found myself, I've been listening to Loretta Lynn's book about her relationship with Patsy Cline, Me and Patsy Kicking Up Dust.
Okay.
Which is fantastic and tangentially Lynch related because Patsy Cline and Loretta Lynn were portrayed in Coal Miner's Daughter, which was Sissy Spacek, who's married to Jack Fisk. So now we're back to David Lynch. Anyway.
Yeah. Go look up Eraserhead if you want to know that connection.
Yeah, exactly. Jack Fisk, who I was reminded today, worked on another one of my favorite movies, which is Phantom of the Paradise. Anyway, it's read by Loretta Lynn's daughter, Patsy, one of her twins.
Okay.
And I was listening to it while I was driving, and I found myself spacing out a little bit. It's like, we gotta listen to this at home. And so that's on me. That has nothing to do with the audio itself.
Yeah.
So what I'm probably going to do is treat this like an audiobook, and I'm going to try and rip the audio and get it onto my phone or something that I can listen to, that doesn't have to have the TV in the room sort of a thing.
Okay.
But it was very interesting. Like I said, it was on maybe 10 minutes and then I was like, whoa, what the hell happened?
We need to, on a kind of a Twin Peaks related note, we kind of need to probably one of these days maybe listen to Cheryl Lee's reading of The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer.
Yeah. And see, that would be something that I could do.
Because that's available on Audible.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Like I was able to listen to the Dale Cooper stuff because I was on the edge of my seat trying to figure out what was going on with him. And
yeah.
But yeah, a lot of times I'll try and start an audiobook and it's just like, whoa, what is it morning? So that's no comment on the two of them and the reading. It has everything to do with me.
Yeah. See, I listen to more audio dramas.
Yeah, if it's like
I listen to Big Finish Doctor Who, or I'm also right now going through the Sandman audio drama series.
Oh, right. Okay.
For Neil Gaiman's Sandman, which is fantastic. I highly recommend that.
Yeah,
and I'm reading Sandman right along with the audio drama, which is
nice.
It's very like I have the visuals and I have the audio, and it's magical.
That's really fun because something that's dramatized like that, like you said, like Big Finish audio, Doctor Who stuff, or Hitchhiker's Guide radio show,
exactly,
something like that. That I can sort of get into if it's the first time I've heard it. But I will tell you, Charles, that on my iPod for a long time was the story of Star Wars because if I couldn't sleep, I put that thing on and I was asleep in 20 minutes.
Interesting.
Because it was relaxing. So that's on me.
Okay.
That's totally on me.
All right. So that's our audio book digression for anybody wondering. Yes. All right. So also on this Blu-ray release, we have, of course, interviews. We have archival stuff, a 2-minute, 42-second trailer, which is a great trailer, by the way.
It is fantastic.
And we have 3 radio spots that total to about 1 minute, 23 seconds.
Right.
If you're into the radio spots.
I can't tell who that is, though, because for a second it sounded like Don LaFontaine, and I was like, wow.
I mean, it does. It sounds like, yeah, like the
In a
voice
world
in a
of
world.
Victorian
Yes.
England.
Yes. I think it is him. I don't know.
I wasn't sure who it was, and I
Yeah.
should have looked it up. I was like,
It is the in the world guy, I
is
think.
that LaFontaine?
I think so.
Mr. $2,000
Yeah.
a nanosecond.
Yeah. So the interviews section, there's 4 interviews, 4 new, well, I guess they're new releases. Although the interviews themselves aren't particularly new, except for a couple. So there's a 2009 John Hurt interview, which is about 20 minutes.
Which is wonderful.
Yeah. There's a Frank Connor interview. He's the stills photographer on the film.
Mm-hmm.
That's from 2019, so that's pretty recent. That's 25 minutes.
Yeah, that was a recent one.
Jonathan Sanger at the British Film Institute from 2018. That's fairly recent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 24 minutes. And then another David Lynch interview from 2009, probably about the same place where Hurt was talking, I'm guessing.
Right.
And that's 25 minutes. So those are the main featured interviews. And then go ahead.
And out of those, I think the John Hurt one was the one that I found the most interesting.
See, I listened to the John Hurt one and also the David Lynch one.
They were all good, but John Hurt, out of everybody, I think he really had such. There's no better word for it, but other than reverence, such a reverence for the character he was playing.
Yeah.
And to hear him talk about it, and to hear him talk in that John Hurt voice, that is,
it's kind of a wistful voice.
Yeah, and he just, with how difficult it was for him to be in those prosthetics and there was so much about this movie that was groundbreaking in the field of makeup effects,
mm-hmm.
And we talked about this last time, Charles, that this movie is why there is an Academy Award for makeup.
Yes.
They actually, and Chris,
because there was outrage that because it wasn't any kind of special recognition for that they came up with a category as a result.
And they said if the Elephant Man can't get an Oscar for makeup, then what the hell are we doing here?
Yeah, exactly.
So much of this movie and hinged on John Hurt looking completely different and sounding completely different.
Right.
Because he had the prosthetic teeth as well. And that was one of the things they talk about a lot, about how John Hurt considered that such a compliment that I didn't know it was you.
Mm-hmm.
In this, I didn't realize it was you. And he's like, okay, I've done my job.
Yeah, I think that was a different interview, but I think you're right. That's, that.
Was that not this one? Okay.
I think that was the other John Hurt one.
Okay.
But I get what you're talking about, because Hurt basically, just to kind of, put it in generalized terms, he saw himself, because he's an actor. He's the one, he's throwing himself into this character, and he's the one who sees himself like, well, it's, that's the idea, is that you're supposed to lose yourself in a role and not make it about you, it's about the performance.
It's about you, and it's about the character.
Yeah. You're trying to stay true. I mean, when you're playing, if you're playing a fictional character, that's one thing, but if you're playing an actual person, you have to live up to that. At least in John Hurt's eyes.
Right. And it says a lot about him as an actor that how much respect he has for that concept.
Right.
Because I've talked about this before, where you have actors who don't want to be ugly or be disguised or not look like themselves.
Right.
And it just seems ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
An example, and this is a terrible movie, is Battlefield Earth.
With John Travolta.
Travolta still had to look like Travolta, but everybody else had a bunch of prosthetics on their face. It's like, what are you like?
Yeah, you're special.
Are you like the human version of it? Like, what's going on here? that sort of a thing.
I want to give you props for just admitting that you've watched that.
Oh, I haven't watched it all the way through. No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's
You hit the eject button apparently at some point.
Well, it's when it was occasionally on TV, I'd be like,
oh, okay.
Oh, it's Forrest Whitaker. I should give it a chance. Nope, this movie's terrible. So, just things like that. And when you have somebody who is such a pro, like John Hurt.
Yeah.
And John Hurt has done so many things where he has been such a chameleon, things like this, things like Contact.
Yeah.
With the no hair and he's very much not himself in that. And he's been in movies for 15 minutes, but they're the most famous 5 minutes of that movie, something like Alien.
Yeah.
John Hurt is just perfect in anything he does.
He is. And obviously, being a Doctor Who fan, I was very happy when he
he
was the War Doctor in the Day of the Doctor special, the 50th anniversary special.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously he's got a very special place in my heart as well.
Oh yeah.
So, there's some interesting anecdotes from this interview. One of them I thought was interesting was that he talks about that he relied so much on Anthony Hopkins' reaction.
Right.
That apparently if he hadn't reacted in the right way, he basically, Hurt says that the whole production would have been in trouble. Because apparently Hopkins needed to have that reaction, and if he's not having it, then the audience isn't going to have it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he felt anyway.
Because if he can't get Hopkins to react the way he needed Treves to act, then the audience it's gonna knock the audience right out. And we've all seen situations like that where it's just something just knocks you right out of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Where somebody does something stupid or says something stupid and you're like, okay, I was rooting for you, but now I'm not anymore.
Yeah.
And I've had experiences like that where there's just something that's so not in that character, or the character just does something ridiculous that you just stop caring.
Yeah.
The one movie I can think of with that is Garden State. Have you seen Garden State?
No, but I'm familiar with it.
Okay.
That's Natalie Portman's in that, if I'm not mistaken.
Natalie Portman, Zach Braff, and Skarsgård. What's his name? Anyway.
Yeah. Stellan Skarsgård?
No. It's
Alexander?
No, it's a Sarsgaard, not a Skarsgård. It's a Sarsgaard.
Oh, well.
Anyway, the Zach Braff character plays an actor who has been in some things, and including this one TV drama where he played a retarded person.
Okay.
And everybody asks him that. Like, are you really retarded? Like, first of all, like, that's an okay thing to ask people. Second of all,
a mentally challenged person, yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
And you're supposed to, I think, really, sympathize and empathize and identify with the Natalie Portman character. And then she asks him that. And I'm like, well, I just don't like her now. She's an idiot. And it just knocked me right out of the story. I was just totally done.
Yeah.
So, and John Hurt's right. If he had gotten a bad reaction, everyone would have totally knocked out of the story, because they would have picked up on Hopkins as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. Something else I thought was interesting was apparently the scene in the train station restroom was the most difficult scene for him, because he was being watched by a lot of people, and it's the only point, according to him, where Merrick loses control of his emotions, making this the rawest moment in the film.
It's an extremely raw moment in the film, because the character is not only very controlled, but he's very beaten down.
Mm-hmm.
He's been sort of taught, like, not to talk and stay out of the light, and it's a terrible existence that he's had. And now he's finally, not only is he losing control of his emotions, but he's speaking up for himself for the first time ever.
Right.
So it's very powerful.
Well, he's kind of surrounded by almost like this mob, and he's having to fend them off and, like, look, leave me alone. I'm a person. I'm a human being.
I am not an animal. I am a human being.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a very powerful scene, obviously. Hurt apparently doesn't think much of Oscar campaigns. He refers to them as repulsive, which I totally respect him for.
Yeah, because, the fact that this one got nominated for 8 things and won nothing.
Yeah.
Is, I love the Oscars because I love movies.
Right.
But I will be the first to talk about, and I will say with no shame that Oscars made a mistake. I love Donald Sutherland, I love Robert Redford, I love James L. Brooks, but I'm sorry, this was a better movie than Ordinary People.
Yes. So, another story, a great anecdote I thought was, apparently he kept the Elephant Man cranium, the head.
I love that he kept that.
Yes. And apparently he was, I guess, away from his home, and he was told that there was a burglary at his home, but nothing was taken because the head apparently fell out of a cabinet, probably in the dark, and scared the burglar away.
Yeah, I know. Can you imagine?
Like you're in the dark, and then all of a sudden, like you pull up in this cabinet, and this giant elephant man,
and the freaking elephant man comes at you. Can you imagine how
So he's feet don't fail me now.
It was probably like some bongo drums, like when Scooby-Doo runs away, Yeah. I can't imagine. I mean, I'm surprised that John Hurt didn't have pee stains in his house from something like that.
Probably the skid marks like in Back to the Future, that are on fire as he runs out of that room.
Exactly. I actually knew a kid in high school who his house was broken into.
Yeah.
And then when they got they found it, they got home, and it was all the stuff was at his bedroom door, and his bedroom door was open, and that's where his dog had been, and his dog was this really large German Shepherd that looked like a wolf. So it was they had taken the VCR and a TV and just dropped it and then ran when they saw the dog. That's what I thought of that story when I heard that kid.
Yeah, so
I can't even imagine or even something I'd be walking through the house and been like, oh shit, this is John Hurt's house. We gotta get the hell out of here.
Right. So yeah, I thought it was hilarious, and apparently Hurt feels that the head protected him. So it's almost like some kind of protective totem or something.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I thought that was interesting. I thought that was a great story. So.
Yeah, I think that's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
That would be. I mean, that would scare the bejesus out of me, and that would be okay, this is my punishment for breaking into houses. I need to rethink my life.
Yeah. I need you to rethink your life. Yes. Yeah. Let's see what else. So, that's all those are the major things that I have from this interview.
Right.
The only thing I guess that was kind of interesting that apparently he, while the film was shooting, he remembers it 14 weeks, and he rehearsed the prologue to Heaven's Gate after the filming of The Elephant Man, and apparently just the prologue to Heaven's Gate cost the exact same, or it cost as much as The Elephant Man, because Heaven's Gate is this notoriously over, this film that ran way, way over budget.
Way over budget, and was very long and kind of boring.
This big money pit for the studio.
Pretty much. I don't know if you guys have ever seen...
I've never watched the movie, so...
Irreconcilable Differences with Drew Barrymore.
No, I know of it, yeah.
Her father is a director, and they basically make fun of that movie.
Oh, that's funny.
He just went stupid over budget. And it pretty much ruined Michael Cimino's career.
Yeah.
Which is sad, because Cimino was a good director. I don't know if you've seen The Deer Hunter.
Right.
But it's the greatest movie about Vietnam that exists.
Yeah. It's kind of a reputation, yes.
Yeah, it's a fantastic, fantastic movie. But it's he's not doing he didn't do much after that. And because everybody's like, oh God, no, not the Heaven's Gate guy, because his reputation preceded him.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's so Yeah, it's a very notorious production, like I said. So, anything else about this before we move on? I guess.
No, the head story was the
Yeah,
highlight.
that was the capper. Yeah, I
Yeah.
laughed really hard at that. So the other interview from this section that I watched was the David Lynch one.
Right.
From 2009, like I said. And there's some interesting things here where, like, we find out a little bit more about, Lynch and his Ronnie Rocket script.
Oh, yes. Ronnie Rocket, which was supposed to be his next movie after
Eraserhead.
Eraserhead. Yeah.
Yeah, apparently he worked on the script in a bedroom in his parents' house after just getting married for the second time. And to help out, his father bought an old house in Riverside, California, so they could fix it up, sell it, and presumably flip it, and the profits would be a wedding gift.
Uh-huh.
So each night after working on the house, he would go into this room and write 10 pages of script. He said he liked to have the whole idea in his head, and after 30 days, he finished Ronnie Rocket.
Right.
So he tries to go around raising money for the film, but has no luck.
No.
And then his friend Stuart Kornfeld was helping him, but Lynch said that he thought that he might have better luck directing somebody else's script instead.
And he's like, well, what do you got in mind?
Yeah, because he asked Stuart, he's like, well, do you know about any scripts that I might direct instead?
Well, I got this Elephant Man thing going on.
Yeah, he says, like, I've got 4. So they go out having lunch at this place called Nibbler's on Wilshire Boulevard. And the first script that supposedly, this is according to Lynch, that Stewart pitched him was The Elephant Man. And instantly Lynch is like, that's it. That's the one I want. He didn't even listen to the other 3 ideas.
Nope. And thank goodness.
Yeah. So that's Lynch's account of how this whole thing started. So then they started shopping the film to various studios, but were turned down. They kept getting told that nobody would want to see the film.
Which I think is such a... It's depressing to me that, first of all, people think that, and second of all, that people are sometimes right.
Yeah.
Because that whole concept of that, something being sad means it's not worthwhile, or even, Charles, you and I have talked about this before, that depiction equals permission.
Right.
That just because I'm depicting it doesn't mean I condone it. But just this whole concept of like, these downers, nobody's going to want to see them. And it's like, well, we had a feel-good movie in 1980. It was called Xanadu. Okay? Which is a fabulous movie, don't get me wrong, but it's terrible.
It's a fantastic name, though.
It's a fantastic name, but my God, is it a bad movie? And I love it. So, but it's really... I just expect more from the movie-going public. I expect something deeper from the movie-going public. Yeah, deeper appreciation for anything from the movie-going public, and I just don't get it sometimes, and it just ticks me off.
Well, this is the transition from the 70s to the 80s, and so you kind of have to take the time period into account that the studios weren't thinking of like, oh, hey, let's do this great art film, and that's probably how they viewed it, I'm guessing.
Right.
Like like something that should have been like an independent movie, I guess. Not a major studio. But
it's not like...
Or something that should have been on television.
It's not like the story of the Elephant Man isn't completely captivating and fascinating.
Right.
So I don't know why it couldn't be a major studio movie. And obviously it can.
Studio execs are studio execs, unfortunately. And they have very limited brains in a lot of cases.
Here's the thing, though. They follow the teachings of P.T. Barnum, and he is not wrong.
Right.
That you will never go broke pandering to the lowest common denominator.
Right.
And he's not wrong. No. Yeah.
So Stuart Kornfeld gives the script to Anne Bancroft, who reads it, loves it. So she gives it to Mel, of course, because, hey, they're husband and wife, right?
Yeah, they're married. Yep.
I don't know if they were married by this point. Maybe they were. I don't know when they got married. But Mel loved it and said, everybody's in, the team that they lined up for this movie, except for Lynch, because he didn't know him. And this is the story that we talked about where Mel's never saw Eraserhead and would have to see it before making a decision.
Right.
So Lynch thought, okay, that's it. Mel's going to get rid of me. I'm done.
See, and that's the thing. I've always felt like Eraserhead is a fantastic litmus test for people.
Yeah.
Because if somebody just says, that's weird, I don't get it, I feel like they are dismissive.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't look very deep at things.
They're looking at things on a superficial level.
In a very superficial way, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Eraserhead is very weird. Nobody quite gets it. It doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. It's not supposed to. You're just supposed to watch it.
Right. It's more of a movie that, like, causes a reaction.
Right, you react to it. You feel it rather
you feel
than
something.
You get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's...
So
it says, I think it says a lot about Mel Brooks that he can see something so non-linear when he is known for such madcap linear comedies.
Right.
And so get it. That really tells you that there is more to Mel Brooks than just fart jokes around a campfire.
What I think happened here was, and this is after the screening, Mel runs out, embraces Lynch, says, and I think this is a pretty insightful quote here. He says, "You're a madman. I love you. You're in." So essentially, as I take this personally, I'm guessing that Mel kind of identified with Lynch as this creative madman, like somebody who was able to take risks, somebody who wasn't just playing it safe,
right,
and was a true artiste as a result. And so Mel kind of identified with that. He's like, I like that.
Yeah.
And so he's like, that's it. You're in. And, when they're talking about Mel Brooks, Lynch said, had nothing but praise for Mel, said working with him was, quote, close to heaven. And he feels that he's a, quote, very special human being. And,
True.
And on this film, Lynch didn't have final cut, which we've talked before, is very important to Lynch. But this one being only his second film, he didn't have final cut. But apparently Mel supported him from the beginning all the way through the end. So I guess it wasn't as important to Lynch at the time.
No.
Because he had Mel's support.
And I feel like this might not have been the most important thing to Lynch because it's not Lynch's content.
Yeah. He was telling somebody else's story.
He was telling somebody else's story. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so
it wasn't his story. It wasn't personal for him.
It wasn't personal. It was more about telling the story of someone who deserves to be revered as opposed to telling a story through visuals and whether or not they make linear sense.
Yeah. Talking about the cast and crew, Lynch thought that the cast was, quote, beyond the beyond, which is such a Lynch line, right?
Yeah, beyond the beyond.
Beyond the beyond.
He's so encouraging and complimentary. I just love it.
Yeah, and it was great because of Mel. So Lynch gives credit where it's due here.
Yeah, yeah.
And which kind of tells you that he's a very selfless person in that regard. He's not a glory hog. He's not somebody who's looking to take credit for somebody else's work.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And he's very aware of the need for the collaborative process.
Yeah. Lynch and Sanger apparently were trying to decide the director of photography at one point, and they did a coin toss.
I'm glad it landed where it landed, buddy.
Well, apparently it landed against Freddy Francis, but then they decided we can't go with this other guy. It has to be Freddy Francis.
And Freddy Francis is so perfect for this because Freddy Francis having directed Hammer films.
Yeah.
It's like, who better to get your Victorian Gothic story than Freddy Francis?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it just looks so damn good.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's shot for black and white, this film.
Right. It's shot for black and white. They didn't shoot it in color and then
make it
take
black and
the color
white.
out. They did full on black and white, which was hard to find at the time because nobody was doing that.
Yeah.
So it's the whole Wait, you want what? Why?
Yeah, it's more specialized camera equipment, I'm guessing.
Specialized camera equipment, specialized film, specialized developing.
Yeah. The lighting had to be right,
Yep.
Exactly. Because
So
apparently it's different before black and white than in color, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it is. It's a very different process. So, but to have somebody,
it's not just like hitting the grayscale button on your computer.
It's a little harder than that.
Yeah.
But just, having somebody like Freddie Francis, who had done, this sort of Gothic Victorian England before, he's perfect.
Xan's getting very casual right now. You guys can't see it right out here in podcast land, but she's very laid out prone on the couch.
I look like Jabba the Hutt. You can just tell everybody.
No, I will not say that. Stop it. Stop it.
I don't.
Bad Xan. Bad Xan.
So
no self-deprecation.
Yes, I'm glad.
Only I can do the self-deprecation.
No, I'm really good at the self-deprecation.
I'm pretty sure I'm more experienced at it than you because I'm older. So there.
Okay. Is that where we're going?
That's where we're gonna go. I'm gonna stand by that one. That's the hill I'm gonna die on here.
Are you gonna die on this hill?
I am. All right, the self-deprecation hill. So.
There you go, Charles.
So she pulls it. Where did you get that? You just happen to have that Salacious Crumb, little stuffed Salacious.
It's a cat toy.
Oh my God!
Told you.
Oh, that's funny.
Here.
All right, I can't even with this. I can't. Even...
Can't argue with me.
I can't. Stop it. No, I'm going to argue with you, but I know I'm not going to win. So
because I have Salacious Crumb.
I'm a guy. I'm a man. I'm used to not winning arguments with women.
You know how? Don't you just love how I had Salacious Crumb like 3 feet away from
you? That's what got me. I'm just like, how did you have that? The perfect thing to support your
support my argument. I'm like, wait a minute, where's Salacious Crumb? I think it's right over there.
Oh my God. I really should take a picture of this, but I'm not going to. All right. All right. Let me see if I can get back focused again. Okay. So on his depiction of Merrick, Lynch learned that there was a medical museum in London Hospital on Whitechapel Road that had Merrick's cloak and hat, along with a plaster cast of his head and body.
Which they took.
And the skeleton. Yeah.
His skeleton is only available to be viewed by medical students.
Right.
It's not for the general public, but the general public can see the plaster cast of it.
I'm totally distracted by Salacious Crumb right now, by the way.
But
how did he not get a Disney Plus show this week?
God.
Everybody else did.
Because he's horrible and we all hate him. With his stupid little laugh. Anyway, but yeah, they took it. They borrowed it. They said, "Hey, can we take this for a while?" They're like, "Yeah, sure, why not?"
Right. They couldn't get the organs because those were destroyed in World War II. Whoops.
Yes, they were. They were destroyed in the Blitz.
Yeah, but one of the anecdotes that I thought was interesting is apparently, when Chris Tucker took the head out to his studio, and apparently there was actual hair from John Merrick embedded in the plaster cast.
Yes.
So presumably we could clone John Merrick, right? If the hair's there.
See, and I think that would be possibly, but if it's
Welcome
been in the
to
plaster
Jurassic
cast,
Park. No.
Your scientists were so preoccupied about whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think about whether or not they should.
It's Merrick DNA.
We've spared no expense. Probably if it's been in the plaster, because the only way you can get real DNA out of a hair is if you have the bit of scalp.
Yeah.
That comes out.
The follicle.
The hair. That comes out of the follicle.
Yeah.
And if that's been in the plaster, that's probably destroyed. So we probably couldn't clone him. And unfortunately, we also probably couldn't, for sure, determine what his condition was.
Yeah.
Because I think that was it was more of a problem with his bone structure and his dermis.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, we can't learn enough from it.
Yeah. But I just thought it was interesting. It was like, oh my God, you got actual hair in there.
Yeah, and that was another thing he talked about, how he needed to figure out a way to get hair into the prosthetic.
Yeah.
Because everything that they had, I mean,
So it doesn't. So it
one of
doesn't look like a doll's head, for one.
It doesn't look like a doll's head, and it moves, and it moves organically, and his hair is important because, and they talk about this, and they show this in the movie, that one of his most prized possessions is his gentleman's grooming kit.
Yeah.
And without hair, you don't use very much of that.
Right.
So him having hair was a very important thing. So, his figuring out how to get hairs in all of that prosthetic was pretty fascinating. Like I said, so much of this. Who do you have there?
Oh, Hannibal Lecter. No big deal.
Very nice.
I don't have Salacious Crumb, so I have to do something.
Just little Hannibal. Oh, and Senator?
Love your suit. Yes. Yeah, this is the Funko figure that I have that has Hannibal with the face mask, and he's strapped to the gurney and in the straitjacket, ready to talk to the senator. So, yeah.
Tell me, Mom, when your little Catherine is on the slab, where will it tickle you? Take this thing
out of
back
here
to Baltimore. So
poor little Catherine.
TikTok.
Yes, exactly.
One of these documentaries, somebody said that Anthony Hopkins is probably the greatest actor who is currently living, and I think they're probably not wrong.
We're going to have to if we're not going to do, Silence of the Lambs on Gold Standard for a couple of years, 2 years, we need to do it on Drunk Cinema, apparently. I think that would be good.
I totally lost you there. What did you say?
I'm just saying we should probably do it on Drunk Cinema.
Oh yeah, that'd be good.
That'd be an interesting one, right?
You know what? We could totally do it on Ghostwood, because you know who's in that? Chris Isaak.
Good point.
That is
true.
Tangentially David Lynch and Twin Peaks related. Agent Chet Desmond.
That's true. Special Agent Chet Desmond. Yes.
Yeah.
Working undercover. Or working basically loaned out to the.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. It's an idea. That's an idea.
See, this is what spending your 90s playing the Kevin Bacon game does for you.
Yeah.
It gives you this kind of skill.
Yeah. IMDb helps too with that.
It does help, but yeah.
Yeah. On the makeup, Lynch said that this is where we get the story of his attempt at being the makeup artist here. This is his failed attempt. Let's just put it that way. So apparently he was in the summer of 1979. He was working in a garage in Wembley, that where they had Live Aid back in 85. Just saying.
Yep.
And for 4 days, he thought, it wasn't working out. He failed in his attempt. He brought Hurt in, and it wasn't really working. And Hurt, being the true professional, was like, it's a very noble attempt or something along those lines.
Yeah,
he was very diplomatic about it.
He had a very elegant way of saying "nice try." But
yeah. So for 4 days, Lynch was petrified that he was going to be fired. He's like, that's it, I'm done. And then Mel brought in Chris Tucker and then told Lynch to focus on directing. He's like, you should have been doing this anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, and I think that's a new director thing, where when you're making an independent film, something like Eraserhead,
right,
where it's you and your buddies wives, and and everybody's wearing multiple hats on an independent film.
Yeah.
Whereas when you have a major studio film like this, you have everybody can do their job.
Yeah.
Kevin Smith tells a story about when they were doing Mallrats, and they had people coming in and, you know, setting up sets and stuff like that. He's like, are we supposed to help these guys? And I'm like, no, you're the director. This is the set building crew. Like,
right. Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane. And with David Lynch, and we'll talk about this later when we talk about the 1981 audio interview from the AFI.
Yeah.
He has done stuff like that. Like, he made the baby in Eraserhead.
Yeah.
But the baby in Eraserhead doesn't really have to do anything.
No. Just lay there and kind of,
and then get clothes stuck in it.
Yeah. And be manipulated. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't have to have that organic, because the prosthetics on John Hurt, like, it's
a little more complicated.
You can see his emotions. You can see the emotions in his face, like when he first meets Mrs. Treves.
Yeah.
And he starts to cry because he has never been treated with such kindness by such a beautiful woman. And that was a thing with Joseph Merrick. He was very emotional and very touched by kindness from women, because I think that
because he had never gotten it. Yeah.
He either got screams, or he had that shrew of a stepmom that mistreated him, probably.
Yeah.
So, because his own mother passed away when he was like, what was he, 4? Something like that. I forget how old he was. But
I'm not sure how that worked out. I think
he was under 10. He was under 10.
We talked about it, but that was like a month ago, so I can't remember. So I guess I need
You're
to go.
making me feel really guilty about.
I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to. Honest, I swear. So I guess, while researching the look of the film, he worked with Stuart Craig, the production designer, and they went to an East London hospital that was derelict.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Lynch was looking. By this point, he hadn't really figured out, like, it hadn't really connected to Victorian England, because obviously, he's this guy from Missoula, Montana.
Mm-hmm.
And
I hear he's not going back there.
He's not going back there, as it turns out. So obviously doesn't really connect with Victorian England. He's not your go-to that you would think of for telling a Victorian England story. So,
but see, that's I'm going to hold this thought, but he's the perfect guy for that, which we will talk about when we talk about the AFI interview.
Yeah, and we're getting there. So apparently, though, he was looking into one of the wards at this hospital, and he talks about how he had like this feeling come over him, like it washed over him. And at some point, he felt suddenly dialed in, like, this, I know how to do this now. Like, just looking at this and being inspired, probably.
And I think that comes probably, and I please understand that this is me just philosophizing about it. I don't dare to know David Lynch or know anything about his process, but I wonder if that is David Lynch, the painter, and the tactileness of his creativity.
Right.
That
if he can touch something and be immersed in it.
Just being immersed in something is what brings it all together for him. Because I can see that in someone who's an extremely visual person.
Yeah.
And David Lynch, who started out his creative life as a painter and still is a painter.
Yeah.
I think the visual and the feel and the atmosphere probably does a lot for him.
Yeah.
Which is why we have such fantastic depictions of the middle American suburbs.
Yeah.
Because he has such a good feel for that, considering where he grew up.
Yeah. He's one of those, he's someone who visualizes his ideas.
Right.
And his whole thing, and we've talked a little bit about this before in various episodes, where he feels it's kind of like his job to get those ideas on screen, or
right.
And so he basically tries to depict things as he visualizes them in his mind.
Mm-hmm. And I think
almost like he's painting the picture.
Right. And I think that's where we get some of the more nonlinear aspects of David Lynch, because when you think about your thought process, Charles, and when you just let your mind wander,
right,
it's not necessarily linear. I don't know if you've ever had to, or if you've ever tried to describe a dream.
Right.
It makes no sense when you say it out loud.
Yeah.
When you think about it in your mind and how things happened in the dream, and then you wake up and you start talking about it and you're like, am I even awake when I'm talking? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So I think people can really relate to that concept if they look inward and realize that when they have a thought process, or I don't know if you've ever done this, but where you think of something and then all of a sudden you think of something that seems completely off the subject.
Mm-hmm.
It's because your mind made associations and like 8 associations and then it got you to whatever it is you're talking about. And that's David Lynch. I think he shows you what he thinks of, but he doesn't necessarily give you all of his pit stops from point A to point
B.
Yeah.
He just gives you the 2 points, and it's up to you to figure out how they connect.
Right. Exactly. And if you do, great. If you don't, great. He's going to make it beautiful for you, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, he doesn't care as long as you think about it and try to come up with your own connection.
Exactly.
So, all right. The only other thing about in this particular interview that I thought was interesting was after, talking about the reactions to the film, he brings a print to Mel, who organizes the screening at 20th Century Fox. Lynch doesn't go to the screening, but the reaction that he hears about made him think that they had something special. So apparently the screening went over really well.
Yes.
So I thought that was interesting. He talks a little bit about the future of film, and this is where he's, interesting because it's 2009. He's talking about that he's being done with celluloid, and it's a dinosaur. So. Yeah,
and that's and I think we see that, we saw that with The Return, where it's mostly digital and.
Right. But it's interesting to hear him talking about this in 2009.
It is interesting to hear him talk about it because David Lynch really has that kitschy mid-century charm about him.
Yeah.
So you would think he would be the person who would want to hold on to celluloid for as long as he possibly can.
A traditionalist, yeah.
Not so much a traditionalist, but a nostalgic sense of it. But he's not. He's all about innovation of medium.
Well, his is about the efficiency because he always wants to do things fast and quick. Mm-hmm. Like he doesn't want to wait around for something to be developed or what have you.
To be developed, or and there's always the amount of hands something has to be touched by.
Yeah.
Adds to your possibility of error.
Yeah. And
so
he's always looking to speed up the process, speed up the post-production process especially.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So he was all in on digital very early on. He's probably one of the first innovators in that in that era.
Yep, so. Very early on.
All right. So let's move on, like you were talking about the 1981 Lynch interview at the AFI, the American Film Institute.
Right.
And this one, interesting, is only audio only, so it was a little disappointing because, probably put Xan to sleep a little bit because...
No, it didn't, because it was...
There was no video to go along with this.
It was so many different questions that it kept me...
And it's like 50 minutes, too.
Yeah, there were so many different questions that it kept me interested, and something really perked me up at the beginning of it, and this is what I was alluding to before when we were talking about Lynch not being who you would think of for Victorian England, but where he was talking about how he likes industry and factories and things like that.
Yeah.
And which is when you think about the two movies back to back, because that's what happened. You have Eraserhead, and then you have with the industry of Philadelphia, and then you have the Elephant Man, which is the industry of the Industrial Revolution in Victorian England. And there's very similar feels to it, where you have this out-of-place person who is a cog in a machine, but they don't fit in the machine.
Right.
So when you think about them in those terms, they are similar movies. They're also black and white. there's other very obvious similarities as well. But what David Lynch said is that he likes industry, factories, smoke, and white Formica.
Right.
And I love it because I feel like with David Lynch, as much as I feel like his greatest piece of work is Blue Velvet. It's my favorite thing that he's done.
Yeah.
So many roads lead to Twin Peaks, and this is another one.
Yes.
Specifically the Formica.
Yeah.
I thought was so interesting.
So it's almost like you could see those building blocks. We talked about how like Blue Velvet, like you said, was the foundation for Twin Peaks.
Right.
And the prototype. And so when he's talking about, Formica tables.
And factories and smoke. Think about the opening credits of Twin Peaks. It is industry, factory, and smokestacks.
The sawmill, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that really, I think I was taking notes or I was checking my email when I was watching this or was listening to this interview.
Right.
And when he said that, I just perked up and I rewound it and wrote it down exactly verbatim as he said it. It was so
insightful.
It was so insightful. And I just remember thinking to myself, of course you do, David Lynch.
Right.
Because not only is that's Eraserhead. That describes Eraserhead right there. But it's also Twin Peaks. There's so much of Twin Peaks in that statement right there.
Yeah. And obviously this interview in 1981, it's very prescient.
And and then when you combine that statement with
because obviously this is 9 years before Twin Peaks.
Right. And it's the person asking the question saying, do you ever think you'll do television? Oh, I'd love to do television. I think everybody's destined for television. And I'm just like, yeah, you will.
Yep.
You are going to change the face of television forever.
Right.
I can't say it enough that any TV show you watch today that you find cerebral and deep, you have Twin Peaks to thank.
Especially if it's one of those water cooler shows. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you have Twin Peaks to thank for that. I can't say it enough.
Yep, I agree. Totally.
I'll die on that hill.
I will die right along beside you on that hill. Let's see. Interestingly, he was talking about a little bit about Dune.
Because they were.
That was his next project.
Yeah.
So he talks about how it had dreams, a story, and images that were exciting to him, and he thought it had more possibilities than a regular film. So that's apparently what drew him.
That's right. And Dune is a very dreamy story. With these planets of water or no water and people with
the water of life and all that.
Right, and the people whose DNA has been changed by living with a spice and
right.
It is a very dreamy story, and it's unfortunate that Dune became what it became because of. As much as I love Dune, and I love Dune, but it's a difficult one to do it justice in a decent time frame,
right?
And for a major studio, and. We talked a little bit before about how, and I won't talk too much about this, Charles, because I know you and I have talked about us discussing Dune at length.
Yes.
But
one of these days we're going to get around to it. I promise. Yeah.
The same way that if you put Mel Brooks' name on a movie, people are going to think it's a comedy.
Yes.
It's hard to get away from a campy factor when you've got Dino De Laurentiis' name on it.
Yeah.
And I love Dino De Laurentiis. Do not get me wrong. I love
after
Dino.
Flash Gordon. After Flash Gordon, particularly.
Particularly after Flash Gordon. After freaking King Kong.
Yeah.
After Diabolic. After, my all-time favorite Dino De Laurentiis production is Barbarella, Queen of the Galaxy.
Right.
Barbarella is I so freaking love that movie. David Lynch plus Dino plus Frank Herbert doesn't necessarily equal what it should. Right. I feel like these are definitely components that are not better as a sum, in my opinion.
Yeah. But and we'll get into Dune at some point, but
we'll talk more about this later.
This is a road that I could very easily go right down because
this is a rabbit hole that we are going to we'll deal with. This is a rabbit hole for another day.
This is the Elephant Man discussion, not the Dune discussion. So so we just kind of need to hit the eject button right now on that one.
So should we
probably
talk about the?
Go ahead.
Should we talk about the baby, Charles?
The baby.
Yeah, somebody asked him about the baby, and he's like, "I'm not going to talk about the baby."
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which made me laugh because we're going to leave the baby out of it.
Well, that's one of the things that he hates to talk about his film process.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. I'm very much with him on this, that he doesn't like to talk about the process of filmmaking and the ins and outs of special effects, because it loses magic that way.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that way. That whole, how did they? Yes, I know that Godzilla is a dude in a suit, but I don't like knowing that.
Yeah. I mean, he says it wrecks movies.
I'm with him. I'm really with him on that sometimes, because I feel like the only time I'm really, really interested in special effects, documentaries, or behind the scenes type stuff, is for movies that I've seen a million times, and this is a way to watch something new about it. Something like Godzilla or Star Wars or Jurassic Park that I've seen thousands of times and can recite backwards and forwards in my sleep. This is at least something new for me to look at. But if I'm going to watch a movie for the first time, okay, for example, The Matrix.
Yeah.
The Wachowski siblings, The Matrix. The camera setup that they do to get those 360 shots.
Yeah.
Fascinating, but I didn't like knowing that before I went to the movie.
Because you start looking for it.
I looked for it, and I sort of saw it. I saw I thought about all the cameras going off at once when they did those shots, and it was something that I would have rather learned about after seeing The Matrix maybe 5 times.
Yeah. And that's kind of the problem with, especially since with DVD commentaries and Blu-ray commentaries, that like this one that we're talking about, is that you get a little bit more insight, and then you start thinking about that stuff the next time you watch the movie.
Right.
And it kind of pulls you out a little bit.
Exactly. And with something like this where there's an obvious special effect that's going on.
Yeah.
Because last year I went and saw this movie called Alien, and now that guy looks like this guy. Obviously there's prosthetics. Obviously there's some makeup.
Right.
And so, and again, and I've talked about this before, that, even if you were to find someone with Proteus syndrome to play this role, he wouldn't look like Joseph Merrick did. It wouldn't be
because
the same.
He would be disfigured in a different way.
His bone abnormalities and his skin abnormalities would have occurred in a different way.
Yeah.
So obviously we know that there's going to be some sort of makeup situation. But so there's a little bit less of there is an expectation of suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
With that. But still, again, it's like, I'm fine learning about this 40 years later. I don't think I would have wanted to know about it. I would have wanted to watch like an HBO special about this movie before I saw it.
Yeah. I think a lot of it also depends on how strong the storytelling is to make you forget about all the technical stuff.
And that's exactly what happened here, because it's a very strong story, and we are forgetting that we're not in Victorian England, and we're forgetting that we are watching John Hurt in prosthetics.
Right.
Because the performances are so good and the story is so well written.
Yeah. And it's just, the visuals are so stunning, and the atmosphere, it's such an atmospheric film.
Right.
You get kind of transported into this world.
Absolutely, which is why I think that...
Which is great filmmaking.
It's great filmmaking. And when you look at... And when people who hear that David Lynch is the one that did The Elephant Man, they're like, wow, really? That guy's so weird.
Yeah.
He made that Eraserhead movie. Like I said before, watch Eraserhead, and you can see why David Lynch is the perfect man for The Elephant Man.
Yeah.
To create that sort of industrial, impersonal atmosphere to be the backdrop for a very personal story.
Because it was that time period and the setting is right up Lynch's alley.
Exactly. He loves factories and smoke and industry and Formica.
Exactly. So Lynch tries to give some advice to the AFI students. He talks about like it's important to have a script that a bunch of people can understand,
Mm-hmm.
which by the same token means that certain films are never going to get made.
And I thought that was interesting too, and I think that was his lamenting his Rocket script.
Right. I think you're right because unless the suits can get it, understand it, they can't develop it. So
right, and if you can't
express your idea,
yeah,
it's hard to develop it. Yeah.
And if you can't hook somebody,
right.
I mean, if you alienate your audience, for lack of a better term, I don't mean alienate in a intentional sense.
No.
But if you alienate your audience, you're not going to have an audience, and you're not going to have a film that's going to get made for that reason. But he also does give really good advice.
And that might have been why some of the studio heads were reluctant to do The Elephant Man, because they thought that audiences might not understand it.
And which is...
It's kind of, I want to say, not really taking the audience into, it's not appreciating their ability to grasp it.
Exactly. It doesn't give the audience much credit.
Right.
But humanity has not proven itself as to being worthy of such credit.
Right.
So I get it. But the same, the same thing where I
like they might be underestimating their audience, but given a track record, given the fact that we're so many, earnest films, that maybe we shouldn't be giving them that much credit.
Exactly. What are we 3 years away from the first Police Academy movie?
About that, that sounds about right. Yeah. What, 85? 86?
God, was it that late? I thought it was like 83, 84, but I could be wrong.
I could be wrong too. Now I'm going to have to look this up. Now that you started, you see what you started. I'm going to have to look this up.
Wow. Police Academy is going to get a hit on IMDb for the first time in probably 3 years.
I know, right? They're probably like, thank you.
Oh my gosh.
You remembered us.
Nothing against George Gaines and Michael Winslow, but
1984.
84. Okay, 84. So we're 4 years
So the same year Dune came out.
See? Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you can never go broke pandering to the lowest common denominator.
That supports your argument, definitely.
Yeah, it really does. But David Lynch also does give some really good advice. Somebody says, how do you get a movie made? He's like, make one.
Yeah.
And that's...
It's just, you have to kind of just do it. And he says you have to have something that you're happy with and you care about.
Mm-hmm.
And then you show it to as many people as you can.
Yep.
And at that point, the rest is up to fate. You can't really control it.
That's true. That's true. Because, whether or not you make it is up to you.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's responded to the way you want it to be or distributed the way you want it to be, that's up to other
forces. Yeah.
Other forces. Yeah, that's up to outside influences, and you can't control that.
That's
and
external.
Yeah. It's completely external, and you have to be aware that that's how it works. And it's the same advice Chris gives to people. How do you draw comics? You draw.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta just
and hope somebody likes it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd probably give the same advice. How do I start writing? You write.
Exactly.
You just write all the damn time, and something is going to happen.
Right. Law of averages.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
1,000 monkeys and 1,000 typewriters.
That sums up my work perfectly. No.
Or 1,000 monkeys and 1,000 cameras, or 1,000 pencils, or 1,000 paintbrushes, or 1,000 pianos. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Let's see. Freddy Jones, according to Lynch, thought that Mr. Bites was a flat character.
Yeah, Freddy Jones was not. He
originally refused the role.
He did. He said, "I'm not doing this," but they rewrote it, and he's like, "Okay, now I see what you're getting at."
Yeah. So Lynch agreed apparently with him and rewrote things. And going back to Dune a little bit, I thought this was funny. He doesn't know why Dino De Laurentiis called him to direct Dune. He said,
"I don't think Dino knows anymore either."
Lynch made a joke that Lynch thought he said June.
Yeah.
And then, which I thought was funny. And then Lynch, Lynch read Frank Herbert's novel and loved it.
And it's a fantastic, fantastic novel. And
It is.
one of the best bad reviews I read about the movie Dune is that what it does really well is make you want to read or reread the book.
Right.
Because it is a great story.
Well, I've been doing the reverse. I've been rereading the book. I'm on my third read of this book.
Really?
And third time through, and in anticipation of the Denis Villeneuve production.
Oh yeah. I should probably.
Yeah, so I wanted to reread it and get a little refresher because it's been a while.
I just read it last year for a book group, and I should probably do it again. But I feel like I read Dune like every 10 years, so now I should probably just,
Well, that's kind of the way I was. I was like, oh, it's been 10 years. I guess I need to reread this again.
Yeah.
So, and let's see. Lynch talked about, I guess, the Elephant Man not exploiting deformity.
Correct.
He says,
and that's a fine line you have to walk for that.
It is. And he adds people may have other expectations about the film going in, but he says they might change their minds after they see it.
And I hope they did, because it really... everything about the deformity has to do with how he's treated by others. I think the deformity says more about the other people in his life than it says about him in the story. Mm-hmm. Because you've got Treves, and then you've got Bites.
Yeah.
And they're, one's a decent person and one's a horrible person.
Right.
And, then you have, what's his name? The guy who takes money from the bar and brings the people around the
night porter, Mike, or whatever. His character's name. Yeah, I can't even think of his character's name either. Hold on.
Those terrible people. It's like his deformity is used to showcase the terribleness of humanity and the way he's treated. Not necessarily, it doesn't say anything about him, which I think is as it should be.
Yeah. Jim, by the way, Jim the night porter.
Jim the night porter, right?
Yeah.
And was it this interview or the terrible Elephant Man documentary where they talk about the tear coming out of Anthony Hopkins being unscripted?
I think there was this.
I think it was this one too, and that scene is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, because Anthony Hopkins has those wonderfully expressive eyes that I think so many of us are used to thinking of as sinister.
Yeah.
And here they are just so earnest and full of humanity that it's such a wonderful scene. And the fact that he was able to just do that in one take unscripted is just
acting.
More proof. Yeah. It's just more proof that he is the greatest living actor.
Thank you, Clarice. No.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. All right. Sorry. Little chime in from Hannibal.
When you are, Sergeant Pembry.
Ready when you are, Sergeant Pembry. Yeah.
I say that to Chris every time we're about to leave the house. Like if we're going to go somewhere, I'll just say, ready when you are, Sergeant Pembry.
And Chris never worries about that. That's interesting.
I'm sure he's sick of it. I'm just saying that.
Oh, that you've done it too much? Yeah.
I do it all the time.
That's funny. That's funny. That's okay. I drive Lori with some quotes too, so I understand. So that's all I really had on the AFI stuff with David Lynch. So unless you had anything else you wanted to add.
No, the main thing I wanted to talk about was the Industry Factory smoke in Formica. I thought that was
that's a good one.
That was just so just so great to hear. You're like, what? Because
all you need to do is throw in an apple pie reference. It would have been like gold.
A cherry pie reference.
Sorry, cherry pie. I don't know why I said apple pie.
Because it's too close to Thanksgiving. That's why.
Is that what it is?
I want to think that Twin Peaks is as close to David Lynch's soul as it is to mine, and this kind of thing makes me think that might actually be true.
Right. That's funny. So the last interview that, at least one of the last archival interviews that I watched was the terrible Elephant Man Revealed.
Right.
This 2001 documentary, or interview, I guess, series of interviews. It's a half-hour long, and these are interviews with Mel Brooks and Jonathan Sanger, along with
Right.
John Hurt, director of photography Freddie Francis, and makeup artist Christopher Tucker.
Right.
So it's kind of going back and forth between a lot of people in this one. Sanger talks about the first time he got the screenplay from his babysitter.
Yeah.
And her boyfriend, Christopher DeVore, and his partner, Eric Berggren, wrote the script. Mm-hmm. So it's essentially, once again, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Have you ever seen Monster in a Box? It's one of Spalding Gray's monologues.
I don't believe so.
It's about him writing a screenplay that it's about like 3 phone books worth of paper.
Right.
And he talks in that about how when you live in Los Angeles, anyone you meet, you know, the kid bagging your groceries to the guy with the hot dog vendor to a lawyer to anybody you meet in Los Angeles, you say, how's your screenplay coming along? And they'll say, how did you know?
Because everybody's doing it.
Because everybody's writing one. So
yes.
Just, anyone, you know, your babysitter, how's the screenplay coming along?
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. Mel talks, we talked about this, so that Mel didn't put his name on the film because he didn't want to he wanted to avoid confusion that it was a comedy.
And we talked about this last time, and that is a great idea because you see Mel Brooks' name in a black and white movie, and you're going to think it's Young Frankenstein 2.
Yeah, it's a very smart decision.
Yes.
But Mel's a very smart person, apparently.
And I think it's a testament to Mel as a person to know that this doesn't have to be the Mel Brooks show for it to be something amazing.
Right.
You know he's the lack of ego that something like that takes is impressive for Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, he did name his production company Brooks Films, but
I know. Might as well.
A little bit of ego, maybe.
That's branding. That's not ego.
Oh, okay. All
Very different.
Okay.
Very different.
I think you could look at that multiple ways, really.
Well, I tend to think of it as a good thing about Mel Brooks, that he's into branding, not necessarily.
Well, we always like to think good things about Mel Brooks, obviously.
Heck yeah, we do.
Yes, we do. Speaking of Mel, this is where he kind of just compliments Lynch. He just talks about his love of Lynch here. He felt like he was dealing with a true artist in Lynch. Mm-hmm. And Lynch, according to him, was as close to the phenomenon of life and why we're here than anyone.
Can you imagine somebody saying something so amazing about you and having it be Mel Brooks that says it? Oh, my God.
So, interestingly, Mel's an existentialist.
Mm-hmm.
But he regards Lynch as being very simple but gifted and intelligent.
Yes.
You knew you were getting a work of art from him, according to Mel.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, probably no higher praise, I guess.
No,
And Hurt, when he was brought in. John Hurt talks about being brought into Mel's office, not knowing what they had in mind for him. And apparently there were large photo blow-ups of Joseph Merrick.
Right. They went to the London Hospital Museum and had large photo blow-ups made for this casting process.
Yeah.
And even Mel Brooks is like, think of the money we spent for this just to get people in the realm of this.
Yeah. And Hurt thinks in an ironic moment, he talks about like, well, I think they went to a lot of trouble to convince me, but I just wanted to do it as soon as they told me the idea.
Oh yeah.
Because he
thought,
I was sold. I'm all in from the beginning. You don't have to keep convincing me. I'm in.
Right.
So he seemed a little puzzled about why they went to so much trouble, which is interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's see. I guess talks about a little bit about Anne Bancroft told Jonathan Sanger that Anthony Hopkins was the greatest British actor living at the time.
Mm-hmm. And she's still right, I think.
Yeah. John Gielgud was interested in the role and was interested in meeting Lynch. So that's a pairing you wouldn't think would happen.
John Gielgud is such an enigma to me. I mean, just considering the realm of things that he's done and the wide spectrum.
Yeah.
You know, we have, you know, the three things that I probably know him the best from
Arthur.
Are this,
yeah,
Caligula, and Arthur. Can you have more different projects?
Right. It's a very eclectic set, isn't it?
Yeah. And for people like us, Charles, that grew up in the 80s.
Yeah.
And grew up with the caustic wit of of John Gielgud in Arthur.
Right.
And then to see him as Dr. Cargom and someone very serious and very it seems.
Did it take you out of the movie a little bit?
Not at all. No, not at all. It's just because for him that was something he did sort of later in life as this lark, you know. Mm-hmm. But for us it was our first exposure to him. And then to go back and revisit his catalog, which is amazing. He's a phenomenal performer.
Right.
And it's just when you, like I said, those three things together, when you put those three things together, it just, to have the scope of his abilities. I mean, that's you got it right there.
Yeah.
Is how good he is.
So let's see what else. Let's see. John Hurt apparently could speak pretty well with the prosthetic teeth in.
Yeah, and better than Joseph Merrick could, apparently.
Yeah, but he didn't on film because Merrick couldn't. So he was trying to be true to Merrick, so he would make his speech more unintelligible.
Right.
Acting, once again.
Thank you.
Yeah. And they held off on the reveal partially because of the problems of getting the makeup figured out. Like they were so far into the production, and they had they were filming things and scenes that didn't have that full reveal, and they probably we probably need to conceal this a little bit. And I know that I remember hearing that John Hurt didn't want to reveal it right away, but Lynch did. Lynch wanted to reveal it early.
And I think that it benefited from having the slow burn.
Yeah.
I don't want to compare it too much to Jaws.
Right. But there's a little sense of anticipation, right?
Right. Just the concept of we can't get this to work, so we can't show it the way we want to winds up benefiting your film.
Right.
That's the comparison.
And you already talked about when Hurt was on set. There's that stunned silence.
Right.
So this is where that was. And John Hurt felt that he did something special. The moment that he thought he did something special as an actor was during the scene where Merrick gets his vanity chest.
Yes, which I thought was such a sweet moment because, like I said, we know that was one of his most prized possessions. And, he liked to give gifts as well, such as the models and things that he did. But just the glee that he had in his voice when he received that gift, the glee and the appreciation was, it's just so sweet. It's, it's like it's one of those things that makes me wish that I had been able to know Joseph Merrick so I could have hugged him. It's such a sweet, powerful scene, I think, and so simple.
Well, that's a very sweet thought, too. That's awesome. At the Oscars, John Hurt was told that he wasn't going to get the award.
You're not going to get it.
You're not going to get it because...
It's going to be De Niro.
Well, because nobody could see you under the makeup. This is what he was told. And Hurt...
Right, he's like, that's the friggin' point, y'all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he's like, it's not about us. It's about the character.
Yeah. Right.
But obviously there's so many, vain people in Hollywood that want to make it about them.
Right.
And Hurt thinks that I thought this was a rather poignant moment. John Hurt expressed his thoughts that if you can get to the end of the Elephant Man without being moved,
I don't care for you as a person.
yeah, you're somebody I don't want to know.
You're somebody I don't want to know, and I am 100% with him on that.
Yeah, I can appreciate that statement.
If you can get through this movie without crying,
right,
without feeling a heartbreak, without wanting to scream at the dregs of humanity,
right,
then you're not somebody I particularly care to know.
Yeah, that means you don't really have a soul.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. We got enough of that going on right now.
I was totally with him on that. Yeah. I'm like, yep, again.
I thought it was a pretty powerful statement, personally. Yeah.
I say that Eraserhead is a litmus test. So is the Elephant Man.
Judging Human Beings by David Lynch Films. Next on Ghostwood. No.
Next on Ghostwood, yeah. And if you're listening to this podcast, you probably passed our litmus test.
Yeah, pretty much. See, all of you people out there, our listeners, you passed the test. You're listening.
Right. That's the thing. You get
it.
You are not superficial fans of film.
Right. You get us. You understand us. Yeah.
Or you, just not even us. You just understand the concept that there's more to life than I don't know. The Farrelly brothers. Nothing against the Farrelly brothers. They make some hilarious movies, but still, there's more to life than zipper and semen jokes
or Adam Sandler movies.
Yeah, again, love me some Adam Sandler movies.
Yep.
But
there's more out there. Let's just put it that way.
That's the thing. If your idea of the pinnacle of filmmaking is Happy Gilmore.
Yeah, you might want to need to broaden those horizons a bit.
At least add 50 First Dates to that list. That's so much a better movie.
Interesting. All right, so that's all I have from that section. Unless you had anything else.
No, mostly, John Hurt was the standout in that interview. Just even just the passion he had talking about the character.
Yeah,
you could tell that this meant something to him, and I think it stuck with him.
Yeah, and he feels that. I think. Well, there's this one line, I forget where it was, but he talks about how watching or being transformed as Merrick made him more sympathetic to people like Merrick. To probably disfigured people or downtrodden people. That it made him more appreciative.
Yeah. Anyone who's been mistreated for something completely irrelevant and out of their control.
Right.
Mistreat someone for what they've done, not for something they don't have control over.
Exactly.
If you want to be nasty to Kevin Spacey, that's fine with me.
Judge people by what they do, not the way they look.
Exactly. I mean,
how hard is that?
It's apparently really, really freaking hard.
I know, but it shouldn't be, right?
I don't know why it is so hard for people. People are such jerks.
People are jerks. Yep.
Yeah.
Humans suck in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Let's build a spaceship and find our own planet. I mean it. Probably my most.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
That's one of my top 5 most quoted Kids in the Hall quotes. Let's build a spaceship and find our own planet. I mean it.
I'd love to know what sketch that's from.
Yeah, it's I can't remember what season it is, but it's Mark and Bruce and Scott, and they're women that work in like a trendy consignment shop.
Okay.
And I can't remember. I'll have to find the season for you.
That's all right. I can have fun tracking it down, I guess. Now, some other archival footage that I didn't get to, but it's also on here is there's Joseph Merrick, The Real Elephant Man, which was a 2005 TV program featuring archivist Jonathan Evans.
And this was an interesting one because they talked about
So you watched this one? I haven't. I didn't watch it. Okay,
yeah, I did
what's
watch
going
this
on with
one.
this?
And the archivist talks about, and again, we don't know a whole heck of a lot about Joseph Merrick, and this is where we got the where I was talking earlier about the possible privacy issue. That's where this came from.
Oh, okay.
Was this featurette, and he talked about the life of Joseph Merrick and then compared it to the David Lynch story. The actual people, the who Bites was based on, and the women, and how a lot of the people were sort of amalgams of multiple people that saw him and received him, and he talked a lot about the guy who robbed him of his savings, and how that all of those characters sort of came together to be the Bites character. And
okay.
So it's a good featurette about how the movie compares to reality, and you almost get the sense that this guy is kind of like glad that somebody made a movie about Joseph Merrick, that it was because
that it was getting his due.
Yeah, and again, like I said, this Joseph Merrick, the person, was quite the enigma, and I think he really does reach into your soul and bring out the best of your humanity, or the worst, depending on who you are. And you can tell that this archivist has a real affinity for him as a person.
Okay.
But
so you would recommend this one?
I would recommend it, yeah, because it is only like a half an hour long, so it's not
it's like 20 minutes. Yeah,
it's not the most in-depth thing in the world, but again, like I said, there's not a lot to talk about with Joseph Merrick. We don't know a whole heck of a lot. He's not quite Caspar Hauser, but his origins are unknown, and it's going to be difficult. I mean, we're never going to know.
Well, that mystery adds probably to the curiosity about him, I'm guessing.
Exactly. And he talks about the part of London that he was in, and how let's not forget that this is where Jack the Ripper was.
Right, Whitechapel, yeah.
This is a seedy place.
Yeah.
This is not exactly.
I've actually been there. It's not that great of a neighborhood.
Yeah. It's there. Did you do the Jack the Ripper tour?
No, I wanted to, but
okay,
we didn't have time. We didn't have time.
Gotcha. The Jack the Ripper tour is fantastic. When you are in London, do the Jack the Ripper tour, because it rules.
Okay.
But there are some places that bodies were found that the tour won't take you. Like, the neighborhood's still that bad.
Right. It's unsafe.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. Right. And it's.
But I mean, we were walking around Whitechapel, and it's not a great neighborhood.
Well, and just imagine it in like 1888.
Oh, I'm sure.
Passed out drunks and shit and piss everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's not.
Sounds charming.
It's a lovely. What a fantastic smell you've discovered.
Hilarious. All right. There's also Mike Figgis and David Lynch. That's another 20 minutes. Didn't get to that either, sadly. Did you watch that one?
I did, and like I said, a lot of these sort of start to kind of blend together, because when you're talking about an experience, you might use different words, but you're telling the same story over and over again. Yeah,
and that, there's a lot of crossover, because I noticed while I was doing this, the booklet covers a lot of the same ground that a lot of the Lynch interviews cover, and so there's a lot of cross-contamination back and forth, I guess. Right,
because you're telling the same story a bunch of times, and it's interesting.
It's kind of regurgitating the material. Yeah.
Right, but it's interesting to hear David Lynch talk about it at different points in his life.
Because this is 2006 compared to, say, the 1981
compared to 1981 or compared to
1990.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that's interesting.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it's all worth watching. But again, I've said a couple of times now, was that this interview or was that this other interview? Because they did sort of blend together a little bit.
Yeah, they do. And there's a clapperboard with John Hurt from 1980.
Yeah.
Which was an interview conducted by Chris Kelly that aired on Grenada TV in the UK back on November 3rd, 1980.
Wow.
10 minutes. I didn't watch it, but I mean, apparently didn't do enough of my homework on this one.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's again, it's cute. It's a promo piece.
Yeah.
So, take that for what it is.
And then lastly, there's Skin Tricks with Christopher Tucker and John Hurt from 1988.
Yeah.
Which was excerpts from a Dutch TV film broadcast on June 5th, 1988, including interviews.
And again, it's a sort of a different telling of how they were talking about how long the makeup took and what had to happen and how it was difficult for him to even, that he sort of became Joseph Merrick in the sense that he couldn't lie down a certain way or he couldn't sit a certain way. So a lot of it was similar stories.
But Hurt, excuse me, one of the things that Hurt talks about in a lot of these is this feeling of transformation, that he became the character.
Oh, yeah.
With that makeup on, which you could easily see that it probably helped him with his performance because he could sympathize with his plight. And that's, you've heard people say a million times, walk a mile in a man's shoes. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, think about that, walk a mile in his skin. Yeah.
And, when you really can put yourself not only in someone's body, you put them in their situation and their surroundings, but also their body.
Yeah.
You really do gain a sense of connection and and for somebody like Joseph Merrick, a deeper sense of empathy, for sure.
So, as far as I can tell, that's pretty much it. Unless you had anything else you wanted to add.
No, that was, I think we sort of covered the highlights of it.
We've been talking for 2 hours, so I think we've pretty much covered it in detail.
And, we've had a few digressions, but not the worst. Not the worst we've ever done.
I was going to say, we've had worse episodes when it comes to digressions, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's us. It's us. Sorry about that, but that's who we are.
That's David Lynch David Lynch is not linear, you guys.
Right.
Why would we be any different?
We would not be doing justice to David Lynch if we were linear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's how this works.
Yeah, that's a ticket.
Yeah, that's
And my wife, Morgan Fairchild.
Morgan Fairchild, yeah. See, and I would just like to point out that you start it as often as I do.
I know. I take full responsibility in that, yes. Or at least partial responsibility.
That's the thing.
I will own it, yes.
It's 50-50 who starts it.
I know.
So this is a definite, you have to have this one, I think.
Yeah. So what's do you have a rating for this?
For the
Criterion Blu-ray.
Oh, yeah, for sure. This is a 9 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
I would have liked a little more photography in the book.
Right.
And that's what keeps it from being a 10 out of 10 for me. But this is definitely, I think, a must-buy, especially since The Elephant Man hasn't been available on U.S. release DVD in so long.
Yeah.
That, there was the multi-region Blu-ray. But
it's a justifiable update if you already have it.
Absolutely. And it just looks so gorgeous and sounds so gorgeous. I mean, that's another thing I would have liked to have seen too. I would have liked to have seen a little bit, and maybe there just isn't anything out there on it, but I would have liked to have learned a little bit more about John Morris and why he was chosen to do the score. Because, I mean, John Morris also was nominated for an Oscar for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's someone that gets really overlooked in this.
He gets overlooked in this set, and I think that's another reason why it's not a perfect 10 for me.
Yeah.
And that would have been something amazing too, would have been, because this is not something that is readily available on CD right now. Mm-hmm. If my DVD copy of Xanadu can come with a soundtrack, my Criterion Blu-ray of The Elephant Man can come with a freaking soundtrack. Thank you very much.
There you go.
I would love to see Criterion start doing that more, including soundtracks.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, with their releases, and it would be something I'd be willing to pay like $10 extra for too.
Right. Just if you were buying a separate CD release.
Exactly, because there are movies that have come out that, like this one, where you have a soundtrack that is out of print, or difficult to find. And this was one of those soundtracks I thought I'd had. I thought I owned this one, but I don't. And I passed it up recently.
Ooh.
And I'm still bruised from kicking myself about that.
You can't find it anywhere else?
If I want to spend $40, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I can, but I mean, it was like, it was there, and I was like, oh no, I have that. And then I don't.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell's wrong with me? Why did I think I had this one? Because I thought I had everything David Lynch soundtrack related, but I don't. But yeah, because this hasn't been on digital before, it was only available multi-region import Blu-ray for the longest time. This is definitely something that needs to be added to your collection, not just as a David Lynch fan, but as a film buff, because this movie made history. This movie is why we have an Oscar for outstanding special effects and makeup.
Yeah. And by the way, it is a 4K transfer.
Heck yeah, it is.
So, yeah, it's probably pretty justifiable, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. I give it also a 9 out of 10. I went with 9 out of 10 makeup molds of John Merrick.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So the reason
I'll give it 9 out of 10 pea shooters.
There you go. Yeah. I know you really like that pea shooter kid.
I just like that he lives here.
That's it. Just because he's local. That's it.
A little bit of, I just want to give a local shout out. That's all.
There you go. So shout out to the pea shooter kid who's now way grown up.
Yep.
Yeah. So the reason I took deducted my point was that in a lot of, there's a ton of documentary stuff on here, which I really loved, but there doesn't seem to be much in the way of recent documentary stuff. There's the one, there's a couple from 2018 with Jonathan Sanger and 2019 with Frank Connor, but nothing recent from Lynch or nothing, obviously John Hurt's passed, so that's not really doable.
We're not going to get a lot recent with John Hurt.
No, we're not getting anything recent with John Hurt, but you think there would have been like a more modern, at least documentary feature.
And again, that's something I feel like Criterion and Janus Films could be doing more of. Yeah. Coming knocking on.
So
the door
you're with
and
me
saying,
on this
hi.
one.
I am. Yeah, they could come knocking on somebody's door and say, "Hi, we're with Criterion, and we want to do a 30-minute featurette."
Yeah.
And it would be nice. And again, I do like a lot of this archival footage because it is very interesting to hear people talk about a project in retrospect, and like we said with the AFI audio, to hear things like, what do you think of television? Oh, I'd love to do television. You're like, that's great.
Yeah, just the idea of hearing David Lynch from 1981,
right,
is exciting, and that's it. It's a valid
and
addition.
Seeing pictures of baby-faced, brown-haired David Lynch. It's not what we're used to.
Right.
So I love that what Criterion does is, go through every file, every closet, every storage unit and find whatever they can.
Yeah.
And I understand why they don't do it, because I think that might date the product a little bit. Like, it's just, what's going to happen is this DVD in 5 years, this is just going to be another old interview.
Right.
But I think it would be interesting to have something, because when you do have something where you have Criterion has done a featurette.
Right.
And you hear people talking about whether or not they expected us to still be talking about this movie 40 years later, or the impact that it's had, or something like that. I think that would definitely be interesting.
Yeah. Would have liked to see something a little bit more current than what we got. Mm-hmm. All right. Don't have any Ghostwood mail. And
no, I don't blame everybody. I've been lost in the forest for a while, so
yeah, that's all right. That's all right. But hopefully we'll get back on track. And so, but if you do want to reach out to us, we'd love to hear from you. If you got any thoughts about the Elephant Man, or anything like, hey, new David Lynch TV series, any thoughts on that? Or, the passing of David L. Lander, or anything else you want to share, drop us a line at ghostwoodpodcast@gmail.com. That's ghostwoodpodcast@gmail.com.
The Gmail.
The Gmail. Or you can reach out to us on Twitter at ghostwoodcast on Twitter. or Facebook, Ghost with the Twin Peaks Podcast. Love to hear from you. Give us some likes, give us some follows, all that stuff. And Xan, where can they reach you?
I am on the Twitters and the Instagrams as Udinax19. And you can hear me talk other Oscar-nominated and Oscar-winning movies on Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast that I do with DJ Nick and Rachel Friend and our various co-hosts, friends and well-wishers, either Patreon givers or friends who say things like, please let me come on and talk about Silence of the Lambs.
No, who would do that? I don't know who would do that.
No, why would anybody want to do that? Anyway.
Of course, yours truly did talk Star Wars earlier this week.
That's right. For our Patreons, we did talk about
had a ball with that. I was very
Star
happy
Wars.
about that.
Yeah.
I totally ruined their show with my appearance, but
Nah, it was a good time. It was good times. And then you can hear me and Charles with the adult beverages and our opinions and our quoting on Drunk Cinema.
If you don't get enough of that here on Ghostwood.
And it's even drunker.
We're even less coherent on Ghostwood.
Which we will be doing next week as we discuss my favorite holiday movie.
The ultimate Christmas movie.
The ultimate Christmas movie, and the bar at which all action movies are measured, Die Hard.
Die Hard, yeah. Looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so great.
It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. So as for me, of course, at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram, Facebook, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of Geeky Things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on Ghostwood, Twin Peaks stuff, David Lynch stuff, all kinds of comic book sci-fi goodness, news of my other podcasts for Southgate Media, including, Titan Talk the Titans podcast, which is kind of on hiatus, but I do that right now with DJ Nick and Jesse Jackson, where we talk Doom Patrol and Titans, and we're just waiting for those to come back for season 3 on HBO Max. And then the Phantom Zone podcast they do with DJ Nick right now and Jesse Jackson, where we're coming up on our big 200th episode.
Wow, check you guys out.
And it's been a while, but we finally got there, and we're going to be doing something a little different as we kind of close out 2020 and say goodbye at long last. So for episodes 199 and 200, we're going to be doing kind of a two-part Flash retrospective. In episode 199, we're doing the Flash 1990 pilot.
Oh.
Featuring John Wesley Shipp. Yep. Amanda Pays, Alex Desert, and more. So we're going to go back to the 90s with that classic Danny Elfman theme.
That is awesome.
So we're going to be doing that for episode 199. And then for our big 200, if we did the 1990 pilot, we're going to do the 2014 pilot. So we're going to be doing the Grant Gustin era.
Right.
So we're going to be doing that and talking all about that. So we got the 1990 pilot, 2014 pilot, and hope everybody checks that out. We somehow convinced Jesse to come on back for at least these next 2 episodes, and we'll see. Maybe there might be a passing of the torch to DJ Nick from this point on. We'll see.
We'll see. I don't know. Jesse's probably busy. Springsteen's got a new record.
I know, right? And he's going to be on SNL and everything.
Yeah.
So expect like 5 more podcasts this week from Set Listing Bruce, I guess.
Awesome.
Yep. So he's going to be very busy. And then, Next Stop Everywhere, of course, the Doctor Who podcast, where myself, Jesse Jackson, and assorted special guest companions like the wonderful and delightful Xan Sprouse join us for
The Auton Fanatic.
Yes, yes. I need you to come on to talk some Dalek episodes. Cause
I know, man, because Jesse doesn't like the Daleks.
Jesse doesn't like the Daleks, so I need somebody to talk Daleks with.
I'm here for you for that if you need somebody.
Please do. Please do. So, and then DJ Nick and others that have just been so wonderful and supportive of the podcast, where we talk all things Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, Big Finish audios, and more. And
there's so much Doctor Who out there. It's a great fandom.
It is. And this week we've got Hannah Scarappa returning to do a kind of like we do here, where we do commentaries.
Nice.
that we're going to be doing a commentary for The Husbands of River Song, which is from the Peter Capaldi era.
Oh, okay.
And it's the 2015 Christmas special, so what better time to talk about a Peter Capaldi Christmas special than, hey, Christmas time, right?
Perfect.
So we'll be doing that here in a couple weeks. Hope everybody checks that out. And this past week, we just had, as we talked, The Lodger from the Matt Smith era. We had a very special guest. We had Tom Zoller, comic book artist and writer, joining us to talk about The Lodger.
That's pretty sweet.
Who's like very good friends with Jesse, and so it was a pretty good discussion. I hope everybody checks that out.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. And then, of course, Drunk Cinema, but Xan already talked about that, so I don't need to talk more about it apart from just saying, well, hey, if you enjoyed our discussions of Batman 1989 and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, wait till you get a load of what we do with Die Hard.
Sprechen Sie Talk.
Hans, Booby, I'm your White Knight.
White Knight.
Oh, Ellis, will you never learn? Anyway,
you know that he is the son of the guy from the episode of The Twilight Zone with the Canamitz where they eat people to serve man.
No.
Yeah, Hart Bochner is Lloyd Bochner's son.
Wow.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And Hart Bochner also directed one of my favorite 90s movies, PCU.
I've never seen that movie.
Oh my God, it's so good. We'll talk more about that next week on Drunk Cinema.
There you go. So stuff to look forward to already. Yeah, Xan, I need a severe movie education by Xan. There's a lot of films that I am woefully unexposed to.
I think we all have that in our in our repertoire, Like I've never seen any Lethal Weapon movies.
Okay, those I've seen.
How did I get out of the 80s with no Lethal Weapon movies? I don't know.
But on the upside, you avoided Mel Gibson, so points there.
I need a woman! Don't get me started on the Mel Gibson rant.
Yeah. That's a whole different rant. We're trying to wrap this show up. We could go another half an hour probably just talking about Mel Gibson. All right. So everybody, next time on Ghostwood, we talked about it, and like I teased a little bit earlier in the beginning of this episode, we're going to be doing a little David Lander tribute next time. So for episode 89, we're going to be discussing Wounds and Scars.
Wounds and Scars.
So at long last, we're going back to Twin Peaks.
We're going back to Twin Peaks, and Dick Tremaine is going to get his just desserts.
Yes, exactly. At the hands of, or at least the teeth.
At the teeth of the pine weasel.
Exactly. With possibly some encouragement by Tim Pinkle, played by David Lander.
Why,
Yeah.
Why would he ever want to encourage something to bite
Dick Tremaine?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine why,
he's
right?
The worst.
But
he's the worst.
There's some other great things, obviously, to talk about this episode because, well, hey, we get the appearance of Norma's sister Annie coming to Twin Peaks.
Yep.
And Cooper being immediately smitten with her.
Chickadee on a Dodge Dart.
Truman sinking further into depression.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine receiving a mysterious puzzle box by a certain Thomas Eckhart.
Oh, such sights to show you.
Exactly. And, of course, plans get going underway for the Miss Twin Peaks pageant.
Mm-hmm. I want to win the Miss Twin Peaks pageant.
Yes. Thank you, Lana. Yeah.
That's my Lana impression.
That's your Lana?
I think this might be it.
Nice. So obviously it's been a long time since we've been talking Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm.
We mentioned obviously here and there, but we're finally doing another episode review. This is one we didn't cover. So I'm looking forward to this because, me, I like to check all those boxes. So I'm cool with that.
And I loved David Lander. I mean, I grew up with Laverne and Shirley, and I literally don't remember life before David Lander. Life without him. I have some of my earliest memories. He's in it. So.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, I'm old enough to remember watching Laverne and Shirley on those Tuesday nights, right after Happy Days, because you had that nice little stretch of Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Three's Company. And Two Clumps for Comfort, if I recall correctly?
That an ABC?
Yeah, that was ABC.
Okay.
I believe so. I could be wrong about that 9:30
I don't
French
remember
slot.
that one very well. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, obviously, Laverne and Shirley, it was kind of a spin-off from Happy Days, so.
It was literally a spin-off from Happy Days.
Yeah.
So was Mork and Mindy, believe it or not.
This is true. It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was interesting to see Mork on Happy Days back in the day.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now now that we've completely dated ourselves once again, thank you guys for listening. Hope you enjoyed our long-awaited review of the Criterion Collection. And come on back next time, Ghostwood, episode 89, Wounds of Scars, as we celebrate the greatness of Tim Pinkle, right here on Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. Goodbye, everybody.